Central Asia, for instance, with the recent orange rebellions that we've been seeing. Okay, a lot of those are sponsored, if you will, by USA dollars.
Oh, I'm sure of that.
Okay, but the movement, let's be real clear, the movement is legit. All these people are doing is harmonizing with their dollars and giving, if you will, technical aid that helps everything go a lot smoother for television.
Yeah.
And ultimately the battles are won in television long before they're won in the street.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Now, they have their own agenda for that, but the people that are exercising the control, that are attempting to manipulate that situation, are probably also aware that those same movements exist within their basic infrastructure, which is to say the Anglo-Saxon or English-speaking world, and that they're sitting on a powder keg.
Mm-hmm. And isn't it interesting, it always seems the United States is the one that lights them. Not only do they move the powder kegs into place, but then they light them, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Where do you see the your predicted events, let's say, of our economic problems? Where do you see all of this fitting together, Cliff?
Well, the faith and credit of the United States in the form of our major export, the dollar, and the belief in the dollar, is contingent not upon anything that is real, but upon the belief of the world in the stability and productivity of the citizenry trapped within the borders of the United States. If the citizenry decide to have a big brouhaha and sit down and not do anything for a while because we're discussing some really important stuff, well...
You there?
Yes.
Okay.
The implication being that at that point we've got economic problems. We already know that some people believe that this is likely the case. Other people who use astrological forecasting methods, for instance, much favored among certain very rich Arabs, have seen that certain, I don't know, conjunctions or whatever they're called, alignments of the stars, do not favor stability in the United States. And lo and behold, what do we have here? We have the Saudis saying, hey, we want our $380 billion back.
Yeah, and they did. They took it back.
Yeah. So they're in the process.
Yeah, but I mean, it's in the works, let's say, right now.
Yeah. And we have it on fairly good authority that because we read a lot of, Igor and I, because we read a lot of the stuff that passes through, that a great deal of the motivation has been astrological.
Really? I see. I didn't know the Arabs were into astrology.
They invented all of the math used, or not all, but, you know, algebra.
Yeah. Well, the Persians did,
algorithm.
Yeah.
They both derived from the names of Arabs who passed on knowledge to us mathematically. They popped the zero and told us how certain things line up, how to measure the planet with a few tools. Not unique in that. They didn't invent it, but they were very good at popularizing it.
Yeah.
And one of the things they did do very well was astrology.
Very interesting. I know that some of the earliest monotheistic religions came from that area of the world. You know, from Persia, old Persia. And Zoroaster was one of the first monotheistic religious leaders who said there was a single God. But interesting stuff, though. And it's interesting because of how, like you were just saying, Cliff, how all of these, in such divergent areas, they all come together, don't they?
It's pretty scary.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Jeez. What, let me just throw some at you. What are some of the, how can I say it, not off the wall, but some of the odd bits of information that you have been picking up recently?
Well, there's a lot of it continuously. Really, the question is, where do you want to go? We start with picking up things that are big public splashes, and then we drive down from there, and we gather a bunch of data. So, for instance, there's been a lot of the stuff recently about the space shuttle.
Yes, right.
So we could go from there, and we decided, well, let's go and hustle about and see if we couldn't create a, because I have these programs that go out and do extractions off of public websites like the CFR, Council for Foreign Relations. we can use those to model what are known as deterministic entities, where we say, here's a collection of words that describe the emotional content and if you will, organization of this particular structured entity. In this case, might be NASA or CFR.
Yeah.
And then we go on out and we tell our spider, look for these kind of words used this way. Come back and tell us what you got. And oh, by the way, bring along any other words that are hanging about within these limits. And we did this for NASA, came up with some curious kind of things.
Now, this was before the shuttle, right?
This was actually after. It had already launched, but it had yet to come down.
Yeah, right. Okay, right.
And one of the curious things about it was had nothing to do with the success or lack of the shuttle, but we did indeed see that there's going to be some kind of testing against our background metadata level of militancy over the few months of NASA, and that they're going to be kind of put in the hot seat somehow. And that, again, we have all these layers of data. One of them is militancy seems to be the overriding theme, if you will, for the next 18 months or so, maybe a little longer than that. Within that next layer down, we have secrets revealed. These are aspects that derive emotionally from gathering these large bits of words that hang about the words we're actually looking at. I know this is terribly confusing, but in any event, we went out and grabbed all these words and found out that NASA itself is going to face a situation in which secrets are revealed, and they're basically going to have an accounting of their their relationship with the populace of the United States. Now that could be inferred, or you could infer from that maybe there's going to be some kind of congressional hearings or something.
Yeah, yeah.
On the other hand, the way we're reading it at the moment seems a little bit different. It would suggest that whistleblower, leaker, something, and some major discoveries or information that has been held private due to militancy, putting the clamps down on it, is going to leak out, causing the whole relationship of NASA and the populace to change. What we see here is a very sudden change. Big blip up in emotional build, and then an instant release of it.
Like an accident, but it's down now. I mean, the shuttle.
We weren't
came
thinking
down.
that so much. We were thinking maybe like computers got hacked.
Oh.
Or a file goes missing. Something like that becomes public knowledge.
Almost like an expose on certain things that NASA has done or has not done.
And I would agree with that, but our wording is a little bit more precise even. It says knows, what they know.
What they know. What do you read into that?
Well, there's another way to look at it. And I was once I was struck by that, I was rather curious, and so I did what's known as a SCED analysis on about 150 documents that NASA has published on their main site. I think it's down 5 layers or something. And I was struck by a particular thought. It is curious that NASA is not curious. When we think about it, our image of NASA is this image of staid, hardly flappable, hardly excitable engineering rocket scientists, right?
Yep.
Okay, and our emotional response to that has been engineered to be belief and faith and so on. We have this real good relationship with them. What if that's not the case? What if it really shouldn't even be the case? And you think about it, in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, before we ended up with NASA, I think NASA was constituted in like 1958 or something when Eisenhower signed some documents transferring over control from some other groups to all things space going under the single agency.
Yeah, right. I remember that.
Yeah, prior to that, a lot of the scientists and engineers that one would have thought would have flocked to such an agency were out writing great science fiction about basically what would life look like on other planets. We had a plethora of ideas.
Okay.
And to a certain extent, it is very bothersome that no such ideas are coming out of NASA now, because NASA appears to be 100% uncurious about the potential for life in any other form than ours outside our planet.
Why? I mean, that's strange.
Exactly. It makes no sense in an agency that supposedly is devoted to all things space exploration.
Yeah, right.
The contact of, this is not Star Trek. They don't have any kind of open idea at all. In fact, they actually have gone to some great lengths, it would appear, to censor out any even hint of an enthusiastic view that might cause a speculation about life in some other format.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't fit. The military has more published information prior to 1962, prior to 1968. There were more published documents speculating about alternate forms of life arising out of the military than exist in NASA today.